Does that say recording, folks, on your end? Awesome. Perfect. Well, once again, welcome everyone. We are so honored to have you join us here today for this session, chatting about how youth changemakers are serving as the future of global STEM education and advocacy. I'm joined by my 12 wonderful peers here today, and we're all going to share a little bit about the amazing social entrepreneurship and impact work that we're up to, and also share some takeaways for how you can be involved in these movements as well. As we sort of put this session together, our framing question was, what does the untapped potential of the STEM community look like? And our answer was, to be honest, the next generation and youth, in both perhaps methods and perhaps the actual people themselves. We truly believe that we are harnessing the Sustainable Development Goals and innovative methods to build a more equitable, just, and peaceful future. So without further ado, I'd like to introduce all my peers who are joining today. We can see Laura Vaishnavi and Rosa, Victor, Shreya, and I, and we'll go into broader introductions later on for each respective presentation. We're also joined by Deepta, Charvi, Kevin, Senna, Dhruv, Amna, and Nora. And some of them will be sharing a video recording as they're not able to unfortunately attend live today, but we still hope that you have a great time listening in. And so I pass it over to Anne Rosa.
Hello, everyone. I'm so honored to be here today speaking to all of you about how youth and STEM and justice for the world and for a better future are very much interconnected. I'm Ana Rosa. I am based in London. I'm 18 and I'm the co-founder and managing editor for Life Sciences at Youth STEM Matters. I'm going to be talking to you guys about this amazing project, which is the highlight of my life, really. And I hope you guys will see how important it is to ensure that young people have a voice in science communication. So let's get started. Lovely. Okay. So we have our 17 UN Sustainable Development Goals, and these goals kind of should be our sort of aim, our sort of, they should define our path forward. And this is what, when we sat down and thought about what we need for the future, we sat down and thought about these. And essentially, we have so many problems, and a lot of our UN Sustainable Development Goals are very focused, like life on land, life below water. I feel that one of the SDGs that really embodies my work at Youth STEM Matters is number 17, which might be unconventional because my organization, which I will talk to you about later, focuses on science communication. However, the UN Sustainable Goal number 17 is all about partnerships and knowledge sharing. And that, I think, really embodies collectively what Youth STEM Matters does. Because we have so many problems in the world, and they have such a great variety, from social and health and environment inequities to a two-tiered pandemic recovery in different countries due to a variety of reasons. For example, vaccine inequity and distribution. You have then, as in Pakistan is happening, flooding, which is hindering further and, causing more incidents of waterborne diseases, which is what we've been seeing. We have non-lasting solutions. As one of my other colleagues and co-founders says, the problems of the past, okay, we try to make solutions for them. However, those solutions turned out to be the problems of the future, which is something that we need to avoid for the future. And how we do that is by taking a holistic approach. So we need innovative, multidisciplinary partnerships across ages from people with different expertise and different fields to come together and think holistically about solutions. And we need creativity, and this innovation is always found in young people because they're not bound by past experiences. They have an open mind and they can easily, and we have seen at my organization, and as you will see from the other 12 global teen leaders, how amazing young people's projects can be when trying to solve the world's biggest problems. So let's see. So what is Youth STEM Matters? So Youth STEM Matters is an international youth-led scientific journal where we peer review articles submitted to us by authors, including original research and literature reviews. But we don't just do that. We don't just publish their articles. We work very closely with the authors to maximize the potential impact of their articles by focusing on the UN Sustainable Development Goals. So we look at the problems, we look at their solutions, we look at their proposals, and peer review them in a double-blind process by focusing on the UN Sustainable Goals and through that lens. All right. And it's really important to be able to amplify the voices of youth researchers and try to ensure that their voices are heard because their solutions tend to be really innovative. So we have a team of volunteers from all around the world, as well as a community that is global from all sides and walks of life. And we try to bring these together to create opportunities, to create community, as well as peer review and publish. That's what makes us stand out. And so we focus on global perspectives, we focus on research and peer review. And this year, we actually also published our first print edition. And, this whole model about sharing knowledge is really important because we are sharing knowledge. How? We are sharing knowledge from our training, which is very extensive, to our then authors and our readers who then give us feedback. And then this cycle continues, the cycle of sustainability. So let's explore that a bit further in our next slide. So we want to model how transparency and accessibility should be in scientific publishing. And we want to be a model for that, to mobilize and empower young people and everyone to join our mission of creating a better world, okay? So how we do that, we don't only just publish. We have research conferences, 3 so far. We have been able to empower over 610 people through interactive workshops, education sessions from experts and young people doing their research, and giving them a voice to share on a live platform online. This is coupled with our skills development to our volunteers in our team, which is very wide ranging from actually editing to then discussing sort of articles together to develop evaluation skills, to then doing copy editing, typesetting, and putting together a lovely, lovely presentation of the science that young scientists have been doing. So how can you get involved? Let's tell you. We are more than a journal, and we want to cement that in the world by empowering as many young people to join research, even if they may have not considered it before. And we want to make sure that our organization is sustainable for the future to create our next generation of leaders, which is what's happening here. I have seen in the organization a succession of leaders, people who joined maybe 2 years ago are now leading the organization in different respects. And that's really, really lovely to see that people are, through Youth Some Matters, gaining the confidence to lead on science communication. So support us, whether you are an expert in your field or a young person, share your ideas, give us feedback. Promote our mission, and join us. Research, communicate, publish with us, join our conferences, even speak at them. It's definitely something like the world is your oyster, but the world is your oyster in Youth That Matters as well. So thank you very much for this lovely session. I will be passing it on to Dhruv, who will talk to you more about how to create accessibility within science communication, which I touched on slightly, but Dhruv will focus on further. So thank you very much, everyone, for listening, and I'll pass it on to Dhruv.
Thank you, Ann Rosa. Hello, everybody. So super, super excited to be here and to present to you all. So today I'll be speaking a little bit more about the work that I do with Amplify Now and disability advocacy and all of that. So let's talk a bit about that right now. So kind of the big gist here behind Amplify Now is that it's an organization that was founded about 1.5 years ago. And kind of the big goal that we have here is to publish information, educate people about disabilities, bring awareness to like the complexities of disabilities and how to maximize accessibility and look at other issues, but also to kind of form this community where people feel inclusive, they're able to speak their voice, to speak their truth. And kind of what we do this through is educational content. So something that we're working on at Amplify Now is creating a series of Instagram posts every week or every 2 weeks where we're kind of focusing on a specific issue, specific niche subject. A lot of the times recently, we have been focusing a lot on how within the STEM field, there's this big underrepresentation of disabled individuals for sure, but also other ethnic minorities, racial minorities too, and how that can create gaps, because obviously we want to strive for diversity and that brings a lot of perspectives in. So kind of we have been focusing on this kind of lack of diversity within STEM and what implications that has. We were founded in early 2020, as I said before, and we're really driven by familial experiences. Kind of in my family, I saw how my father had hand tremors and how that kind of led to a lot of this ableist slurs and ableist remarks and just ableism at large, and how that kind of plays a part in things. So kind of that's where Able5 really originated. And then just over in the past year and a half, we've kind of made this significant impact, right? We're in about 35 plus countries. We've served over 10,000 people. That's where our content has reached, and all of our events have been funded by an incredible amount of people. And so I think more than just the numbers on the screen, to us, it's really the stories that we're getting from people who are reading through our content. They're coming to us and saying like, hey, never thought of this perspective on this, but thank you for sharing it. It's those stories that are really influencing us. So I think we can talk a little bit more about the specific issues that Able5 now is solving. So we're kind of noticing that we're solving two issues, right? So firstly, we're noticing that a lot of the times advocacy done for disabled movements are really, really focused or just led by adult figures, right? The youth voice has really been silenced in this sphere. A lot of times you're not able to hear like, oh, there's perspectives of this youth with a disability or this youth that has a neurodivergent condition. That perspective is often overlooked for a number of reasons. It could be adultism, it could just be ableism or whatnot. But kind of the big gist here is that like youth have not been able to come to terms with their disability to be able to kind of advocate for it. And so Able5 now, we're trying to give them the space and that kind of power needed to do so. Our entire team is youth-led for youth. So we are entirely kind of focused on youth, and we're giving the youth the resources and the kind of framework that they need to put themselves in positions of power and then continue to advocate for themselves. But I think second, what's perhaps even more important is this kind of issue of solving this idea of a one-size-fits-all model of advocacy, right? Like just think back to the times that you've heard a presentation where it's just a generic presentation, you go through it, you can ask a question, then you're done with it. You're not really engaged in that, right? Like you don't feel immersed into that kind of form of advocacy. And so that's this kind of model of advocacy that Able5 now is trying to break out of, right? Like kind of thinking, okay, what can we do to actually engage and immerse people in the advocacy? So instead of just giving a presentation, making this pamphlet, writing a flyer and then sending it out, we're trying to organize events that are very, very specific, hyper-focused to specific populations to maximize that reach and engagement. I think a good way to thinking about this is, for instance, like we can look at the STEM field, right? Like the most effective way to talk about the underrepresentation of disabled figures in STEM is to bring in disabled figures that are currently working in STEM, have them speak about their experiences and kind of specifically focus on this issue, rather than just kind of engaging in this broad narrative. And I think that's the core issue that the next slide or the next event we were going to talk about, Ability Hacks, really was focusing on. So we can talk a bit about Ability Hacks right now. So we've organized a number of events, but Ability Hacks is one of the kind of premier events that we've organized. As I talked about before, there is this big gap in the STEM field where disabled figures aren't really included. There's kind of statistically a big disproportionate gap there. So Ability Hacks was a 36-hour-long hackathon that we organized, where we once again had a hyper focus on this niche population, the disability advocacy sphere, STEM underrepresentation. So that was a specific issue that we focused on. And then kind of what we ended up doing is that we organized this hackathon that was two-parted, right? First part, it was we brought in speakers who talked about their experiences, like, oh, my work environment isn't accessible and there needs to be a lot of kind of progress in that sphere. And second, we immersed youth in the actual process, right? So we gave youth about 36 hours to kind of go into teams or work independently to create like a number of different projects relating to disabilities, to support people with disabilities. And so by the end of the 36 hours, we had over 20 projects submitted by 150 participants. And some of these projects we're continuing to work with to actually implement them. And I think they're really, really diverse. And I think we really find passion in them because some of them are making an add-on to Google Maps where you can see, oh, which locations are accessible. Or another idea was to kind of go through kind of science publications and see, oh, like this font might be difficult for a dyslexic person to read or whatnot. So I think we really find a lot of passion in these projects and we can really see it through. But ability hacks was something that I think really struck out to us because we were able to really engage and immerse people. And I think this is just an example of how instead of just doing these one size fits all model advocacies where you're just giving a presentation, it's really crucial to actually engage people and immerse people. And I think ability hacks is a fine example of that. It was a great success. 150 participants, made over $40,000 in corporate sponsorship and whatnot. So I think it was it was a great event. I think that we found a lot of thrill in. So I think this all comes down to the big question, right? Like Ablify Now is doing all of this, but how can you all get involved? And I think if you are a youth, you can obviously join us. You can search us up on Instagram where we post a lot of the educational content, but I think we also end up recognizing that youth themselves, a lot of times we need these multi-generational partnerships that Ann Rosa was talking about. So we need the help of adults. We need the help of all different people, all different backgrounds. We need to kind of elevate these intersectional voices to kind of just continuing to read our content, continuing to advocate for us. Most importantly, to create the space for youth and disabled youth to kind of come to power, come to terms with their disability and to continue to advocate for themselves. I think that's super critical. So thank you so much for letting me speak today. I'm elated to pass on the torch to Dipta.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Dhruv and Rosa as well. If we could join in a quick round of applause for these two wonderful folks. Thank you so much for sharing. Why don't we actually take a very brief pause here to see if there's any questions in the audience, anything that you have a burning curiosity about to hear further from Ann Rosa or Dhruv. Feel free to raise your hand on Zoom with the hand icon function, or you can also drop it in the chat and we can take a look. If there's no questions that come to mind right now, that is perfectly okay as well. Just keep them coming. You can always put them in the Zoom chat, hold on to them until we have our next Q&A portion as well. Also a great chance to take a quick water break in a moment. All right, so I believe that Deepta is unfortunately not able to join us live at this moment, but we'd still like to take a brief walk through his slides to give you an idea of what he's leading with his initiative titled Liquify. So Deepta is primarily looking to focus on the global water crisis. We'll take a moment to let you read through the information here. We are also recording this session, by the way, so if there's any information that you would like to go back and look at, it will be available later on. So Deepta's initiative, Liquify, was founded in 2020 and is very much based at a grassroots level and directly working with community members, which is really wonderful. And has also reached many people across the globe through social media efforts as well, raising awareness. So both this bridge between grassroots and global efforts that I think some of our previous peers and later peers as well will touch upon as well as a commonality. And here are some examples of the work in action. And as always, you can catch up and stay in touch with Deepta and Liquify's mission on social media channels as well. So just search up Liquify. Without further ado, I will go ahead and pass the torch over to our next global team leader, Shreya.
Hello, thank you everyone for taking the time and joining in today. I'm honored to be here. My name is Shreya Tandon. I am from Mumbai, India, and I am 17 years old. I am a founding member, South and Southeast Asia regional leader, and director of finance at Dream Equal, a global youth-led nonprofit organization focused on eradicating gender stereotypes and pushing little girls to receive an education centered around their interests rather than just societal norms. Dream Equal is positioned at the intersection of career development, social justice, and gender equity. Our three core pillars of empowerment, advocacy, and education guide our work. We carry out workshops with people of all ages, host fundraisers, and support chapters on a global level. As one of the founding members, I am in charge of 11 chapters in India, Indonesia, Malaysia, Bangladesh, Pakistan, and Afghanistan. International registration is another process I am heading in the present, as I hope for Dream Equal to establish a strong presence in India. We've eagerly watched our ranks go from 1 chapter to 39 since the organization's founding about 3 years ago. Present in over 18 countries and having impacted over 800 girls, we aim to make education accessible and incorporate the Sustainable Development Goals of quality education, gender equality, and peace, justice, and strong institutions a reality. We work primarily with girls in science, technology, engineering, and mathematics, more commonly known as STEM workshops, teaching them the importance of learning quantitative skills and the opportunities that they present for the future. We also provide them with the opportunity to carry out STEM-based projects. Dream Equal is especially meaningful to me as someone growing up in India, where girls have less access to opportunities due to their family's reluctance to send them to school. Even if they do get to attend school, they are usually discouraged from pursuing STEM classes, especially in rural India. Hence, our biggest obstacle came initially in convincing girls and their families in rural India to allow them to pursue hard STEM projects and subjects. However, I did not let myself get deterred, as helping girls gain an education and eliminating gender stereotypes are what I feel most passionate about. And ever since then, we've gone door to door of homes in rural India to convince families on the grassroots level to let their daughters pursue a higher education and STEM. And I'm in contact with chapter leaders to help them plan workshops to eliminate gender stereotypes, encourage pursuing STEM subjects, and even teach creative writing. Additionally, I'm in charge of overseeing fundraising, partnerships, and grant writing within our finance department. Through two other organizations, Scientists, for which I serve as the Director of Outreach, and Girls Who STEAM, for which I serve as the International Regional Lead, I've helped conduct STEM lessons virtually and impact over 25,000 girls in 24 countries through our volunteers, workshops, Girls with Goals conference, and mentorship programs. I believe that making STEM knowledge accessible through fundraising, teaching, and most importantly, by making it fun, is very important. A lot of the girls we work with have been able to explore computer science and physics in detail and have even decided to pursue programming and majors like mechanical engineering at the university level, especially in rural India, where access to education is a bigger issue. I hope to continue inspiring fellow youth to take action and raise awareness about STEM in their local communities. Over the past year, I've also gotten heavily involved in research and internships pertaining to environmental sustainability and renewable energy accessibility here in India. I believe that rather than allowing our population to be demoralized by the idea of climate change, we must actively combat it through the effective exploration and implementation of science, environmental law, and policy design. In particular, over the past year, through an internship at Loham Cleantech, a company that recycles lithium-ion batteries and offers energy solutions, I've immersed myself in determining the environmental feasibility of mining nickel laterite versus sulfide. Further research in my IB economics class on sustainable sand mining in China's Pearl River taught me about futuristic mining trends and the practicality of imposing specific environmental policies. Additionally, intrigued by the potential of electric vehicle transportation, I conducted a research project on the financial and environmental feasibility of electric vehicles in India. In a 2021 report curated by the World Air Quality Report, an astonishing 35 out of 50 cities with the poorest air quality were located in India. As a result, the Indian government and vehicle industry have now realized the imperative need of the hour to employ methods for cleaner air and are attempting to incentivize automakers to switch to electric vehicles, primarily in the field of public transportation. As a potential future economist or policymaker, I hope to comprehend the financial repercussions of environmental policies and natural resource economics, while also identifying efficient methods of recycling and storing batteries, with an audacious goal of making solar and wind energy more accessible in rural Indian villages. I hope to revolutionize power rurally by using unconventional problem-solving techniques. Simply 1 megawatt of energy can power 1,500 Indian rural households, and I'm determined to install photovoltaic solar panels and wind turbines to benefit the lives of countless Indians. I also recently co-founded an environmental, social, and governance, more commonly known as ESG startup called the ES Generation, and I hope to educate startup founders on how to effectively implement ESG practices and connect them with investors who prioritize ESG strategies when making investments. Through this startup, I hope to do my part in the world, transitioning towards sustainability in the corporate world. I also hope to find more ways to increase access to clean potable water and to incorporate solar, wind, and hydro energy at major corporations and at a national and international level, respectively. Thank you everyone for listening. I will now pass it on to Vaishnavi.
Hi everyone, thank you so much for being here today and listening to us youth about Hi everyone, thank you so much for being here today and listening to us youth about the importance of STEM in our lives as well as yours. So I am 16, I'm from India, and I'm the founder and executive officer of Solibrius and Steam Forward, about which you'll get to know more in the later slides. Okay, so before some introduction about me is that I'm very passionate about computer science and technology and using technology for social change. And in the past, I've worked on projects that include detecting algae blooms on water through my project Notificators that help the challenge of eutrophication through CNN model. Through artificial intelligence and ML, we will gaze through the green colors. The other project that I've also worked on is Prism AI, which is focused on delivering the importance of artificial intelligence and AI ethics. And we do this by daily blogs, articles, discussion forums, and mediums that will help people better understand the emerging technologies, as well as how to be aware and use technologies more ethically. Being very passionate about technology, I thought that I might fit in the tech career, and I really wanted to go in the tech space, and I've always wanted to. But something that really discouraged me to go in this field was the lack of representation, lack of female role models, lack of female mentors in the tech field. Yeah, and the lack of resources. And everywhere that I saw, it could be from coding organizations to mentors to role models to resources present in our textbook, it was all filled with men. And that really made me feel discouraged about being able to find my own space in the tech career. And that's why I started advocating about women in technology. I did this through starting a blog and a social media page called Solibrius. it was basically to acknowledge the presence of women and celebrate the importance of women in the tech industry, make them feel belong and empowered. We slowly grew into a community organization that helps supports other women through providing them mentorship, networking opportunities, and resources. And we grew into a community project with our mission to educate, inspire, and empower those girls to break those gender stereotypes, not in just in the tech industry, but all those male-dominated industry, including business, finance, other STEM fields. And that's why we grew to host workshops and events that focused on inclusivity for women. We invited different women from different fields and hosted our daily IG lives, and where we have women acknowledge the presence, where we have women celebrate them belonging in those male-dominated industry. Our vision is to achieve gender inequality in male-dominated industry through networking opportunities, mentors, and events that support young women who are interested in entering those male-dominated fields. Chinmay, if you could slide the next slide. Yeah, the impact we have made so far is we have been able to reach over 50,000 women across 45 plus countries and able to successfully make them feel belonged and empowered in this industry. We've also been able to have 12 plus chapters around the world, including UAE, Philippines, Kenya, Nigeria, and many such more. And we've been able to provide laptops and technology equipments to over 200 beneficiaries, including students, teachers, underprivileged schools, and able to provide them with our curated curriculums, our tech curriculums that helps provide information on different tech courses, on different tech programs, and able to educate them about tech. Other than that, our flagship program includes Tech Connect, which is a community development projects that aims to tie, which is to teach, inspire, and engage students through sustainable outreach, education, and empowerment. The first project that Tech Connect launched was our workshop that held from August 2nd to August 4th in 2020 virtually, and we were able to have different programs from workshops to panels, women in tech panels, where we invited different women and from software engineers to data scientists who spoke about their journey in the tech field and who gave like real world experiences to those young girls who are looking and aspiring to join the tech industry in the future. Other than that, we have our monthly pop-ups, which are our on-ground workshops on various topics and causes, including menstrual health hygiene, financial literacy, personal development, and sustainability. And our aim behind hosting these workshops is to support the end goal of women empowerment. We believe that we all will only able to unlearn those existing myths and stereotypes about women not belonging in a particular industry or not belonging in the education spaces is only through unlearning those existing stigmas and promoting those healthy events, those healthy issues that are important towards generating equality in these spaces. And other than that, I also initiated a project called STEAM Forward last summer. That is a series of campus visits consisting of a career talk and forum on the state of STEM in the country, especially in India, where the percentage of women in the STEM workforces is too low, which women only make up around 28% in the science, technology, engineering, and mathematics industry, and they vastly outnumber majorings in college as well. And these are particularly why the reasons people are not able to promote women in tech is because they lack those initial resources. And that's why we started this initiative called STEAM Forward, where we visited different campuses, different schools from public schools to private schools and certain universities, and promoted the importance of STEM, because we believe that we can only promote the inclusivity in STEM by actually promoting the importance of STEM, not just in a very traditional career field, but also in the various interdisciplinary fields. For example, we talk about how STEM can actually be applied to arts, and how STEM can apply to humanities, and how a project can be drawn out of it. Our main aim promoting STEM in general is because the belief around that STEM is actually a superpower. It can actually be used to bring social changes. And that's why we follow the framework of the SDGs to help students recognize different problems that are existing in the world today, and they can seek inspiration from them and draw their own projects, innovations, and models that promote STEM and sustainability. Through this project, we're also not just advocating about STEM, but also setting up different laboratories that help students get a more practical approach towards STEM. As in India, many schools do not have access to basic laboratories, and STEM for them is basically all about math equations and chemistry formulas, and there's no experimental learning for them. And that's why while starting those advocacy programs, we focused on how there's a lack of laboratories and experiential learning itself. And if those particular objectives are not present, it's hard to advocate them about STEM itself, because students find it boring, just theoretical approaches. And that's why we started setting up biology, chemistry, physics, and mathematics lab in those under-resourced government schools. And we to able to reach out to students from low-income backgrounds and tell them that STEM is much more than formulas and equations. We were able to do this by setting up labs, and we have been able to maintain 35 labs in 10 plus schools, giving around 1,500 students access to experiential learning. Yeah, that was all about my project. If there are any questions. Okay, I'll head it over to Laura, who will be speaking next.
Amazing. And Rosa, are we all set with the slides?
Sorry?
Are we all set with the slides update?
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you so
Okay.
much. Let's get started.
Amazing. Okay. Give me 1 second, folks. Just going to refresh the page really quick. Just some usual Zoom technicalities, you know, the fun part.
In the meantime, I actually have a question for you, Vaishnavi. What are you seeing for the future? As in, what are your next plans? You want to, I mean, of course, you're going to be working to maintain your laboratories, working on your projects, but is there anything specific in mind that you're looking forward to?
Yes, and it's a great question. Currently, our main approach is to, for a project Solibri, the main approach is to let people unlearn those existing stereotypes and stigmas that surround around, women entering, as Shreya mentioned, about the lack of students, like people understanding that girls need to be educated, like just like any other gender, and it's nothing wrong. So I think our major focus right now with the project Solibris is to let people understand the importance of education for all, rather it be any gender, any socioeconomic background, any sexuality. And for our project Steam Forward, we are hoping to students, as entering like hosting different workshops in different schools. I got to notice one thing, that students normally take STEM subjects as like these heavy burden subjects, and they're not able to get a grasp on the approaches, the interdisciplinary approaches, the intersectional approaches through STEM, that how they can actually use STEM in maybe an entrepreneurial way, or maybe, approaching it in a field like humanities. So I think just like advocating them about different numerous fields that STEM has like doors open to. So I think that's something we're hoping, and we will do that by advocating and like hosting those workshops and advocating them about those possible opportunities.
Yeah, wow. I mean, it's amazing. And I can't wait for Laura to add on to how Vaishnavi explored our UN SDG of gender equality, but also she's going to add some very interesting points, I think. So I'm very much looking forward to your speech, Laura. Please go ahead. Over to you.
Thank you so much. And Chinmay and Vaishnavi, it was such a pleasure to hear you and to be here right now. So my name is Laura. I am from Colombia. And so before I go ahead to talk about my project, I would like to give a little bit of context of who I am and the fundamental concepts behind it. So maybe Chinmay, can you please pass the next slide? All right, so some years ago, I was diagnosed with an autoimmune disease that sparked in me a real curiosity for understanding the world. And I found in science that answers. I found in science the comfort to understand my own body and the way things work. Eventually, this led me to artificial intelligence, almost as a coincidence, and how artificial intelligence can be used for the early detection of diseases. So I started a research journey by understanding how artificial intelligence can be used, for example, for breast cancer detection. And eventually, through artificial intelligence, I also learned about data compression and how this can be used for impact education and communications by creating novel methods that can replace traditional video conferencing techniques. My point here is really to see how by artificial intelligence, I've learned how different things are interconnected and how you can find a connection between things that seem to be totally separated. And when you do so, they become stronger, they become powerful. And basically, I've discovered a real passion for how artificial intelligence can intersect with social justice, equality, innovation, health, and peace. And all of this artificial intelligence basically brings a light into what real intersectionality is and how it can be used to approach challenges. So before I go ahead to talk about ASAFI as the organization, I would like to provide some context of the Colombian context. More or less 50 years ago, we have suffered different types of violence as a result of different types of wars. The armed conflict has left more than 260,000 people dead, and more than 120,000 are still missing even today. What is worse, the vast majority of them have been civilians. And if there is something more terrible than war, is the fact that war exponentiates and exacerbates inequalities that were already existing. And that's the case of gender equality, just as Vaishnavi was talking before. In fact, there was one woman being raped per day as a result of the conflict. And this is because women have been conceived as weapons of war, and traditional gender roles have been attributed to this. Of course, other things such as education have been affected, and particularly for women that have been attributed these characteristics as part of war. So Navi, maybe you can pass the next one. As another big problem that has brought a lot of violence to Colombia is drug trade and narcotourism. Although narcotourism was more frequent during the 90s, today drug trade is still present, and especially I can see a connection between this and the armed conflict, because drug trade is being used to fund the criminal activities of the groups outside the law. And therefore, there is a connection between these two things. And there is this another problem that is another inequality, economic vulnerability, given in the countryside by farmers that have to, living under poverty, don't have any other option more than growing illicit crops like coca, cannabis, that is used to make cocaine, and the economic activity of drug trade. So my point out here is to see how there is a cycle, how I was able to identify these big three problems that at the beginning may seem like too complex. On one hand, we have the armed conflict caused by the war actors, like the groups outside the law. Then we have drug trade as a separate thing that is connected, but it's a different problem that causes violence by itself. And then we have all of these other types of inequalities that are affecting education, that are affecting health, and that is economic inequality and vulnerability and gender inequality. So Vaishnavi, maybe you can pass the next one. So Asafi was born understanding that war is a systematic and intersectional challenge. So by looking at war as a big thing that can be broken into different parts, that can be connected, it is possible to approach this big challenge in a much easier way and a much effective way by impacting all these stakeholders and all these different parts that play an essential role in the future and in how war is going to be developed for the next years. So on one hand, we can see how from the victims of war, 4.4 million have been women. Less than 50% that at leadership positions at technology, just as Beshni was saying, it's still a real issue. And in fact, only 1.3% of rural women, which is from the most part of the population, have access to higher education. 82% of the people with low income or below the minimum wage are post-conflict zones. So we can see that by empowering and by acting directly with victims of war, directly in rural areas, we are also impacting how war develops as they role directly in war. So before I got to this point, I was interested in how artificial intelligence can be used for farmers to live illicit crops. So first of all, I saw this connection between conflict and drug trade, and how by reducing trade and by giving farmers a tool to escape from drug trade, we can stop financing the armed conflict and the armed actors. So through artificial intelligence, I've built an AI-based solution that increases substitution crops like cacao by detecting diseases such as moniliasis, because this disease can destroy more than 90% of the crops. And this way, farmers have a way to escape from coca by choosing substitution crops that can be as rentable as coca. If they are not, then they don't have any other option. And that way they have a dignified transition. Now, joining this to the point of being women being underrepresented in STEM and all these minorities is when we could talk about educational programs and how we can provide AI tools and knowledge to those underrepresented populations in order for them to orientate for the applications in peace building and in problem solving. So maybe Shinavi, you can pass to the next one. In a nutshell, that's how Asafi was born. Asafi wants to foster and link young women in STEM with particularly artificial intelligence for peace building and rural development in Colombia. So by providing the correct tools, by providing the correct training, then women have the educational options to choose artificial intelligence as a way to solve local problems, particularly problems related to peace and war. So one of our most important supporters that we wanted to give them a big shout out, it's Plus Colombia, which is a nationwide nonprofit org serving the Colombia hardest to reach populations. They have helped us to work directly with majors of its war zones, with the education minister and the Colombian Institute of Agriculture. It's one of the greatest and biggest nonprofits in Colombia. And we just really wanted to give them a shout out because of that. Right now, my conclusion at the end of the day is just big problems. And the way I want you to see big problems is that although they are difficult to solve, the clue is by finding the intersection between different problems, and that way have a greater impact. And that's exactly what Asafi is working on, and exactly what we want to continue working on. Thank you so much for listening. I'll pass it then for Nora.
Yeah, so Nora couldn't make it to live today, so she has recorded her presentation. Yeah, Chinmay, you can go forward and play it.
All right. The sound should be enabled, folks. In case it doesn't come through, let me know.
Hello everyone, my name is Nora Sun, and I'm a 17-year-old high school student from Chicago, Illinois. I'm also the founder of Tularia Summer Institute, which is a summer program for teen girls. So Tularia Summer Institute was formed from a combination of my own personal experiences and ideas that I had, which were supported by statistics. Personally, from a young age, I noticed that intellectual spaces tended to be unaccepting of women. For example, growing up, I was involved in my middle school's math team, and being the only girl on the math team, I was sort of left out of the friend group of guys. who were my teammates. Because of this, I wasn't able to discuss problems with them or complete the same workbooks or get access to the same resources that they did within their friend group. This eventually led me to drop out of math team with very low self-esteem. Following this, I participated in some science research projects where my self-confidence definitely improved as I showed myself that I could attack challenging topics and bring my own ideas into science. I wanted to share this experience with others. Another observation I made as I got more involved in research was the role that cognitive diversity plays in innovation. So cognitive diversity is a form of diversity generated by racial, gender, or socioeconomic diversity, or any other forms of diversity. Basically, the concept states that individuals who come from different backgrounds tend to tackle the same problem differently. I experienced this myself when participating in research projects. When me and my friends were faced with the same research question, we often thought of different methodologies. However, there's a paucity of cognitive diversity in science research. And because of this, innovation is slowed down. Many studies have shown that more cognitively diverse research teams come up with a solution faster because they cover more ideas and more bases. However, there is a lack of female researchers, especially those in tenure track in academia. This lack of this lack of cognitive diversity is slowing down science research. In order to achieve all three of these goals, I founded Tularia Summer Institute, which is basically a free summer research program for teen girls. It has a 13% acceptance rate, and so far we've held 3 programs, working with a total of 396 girls. During the program, accepted girls are paired with a mentor. They work one-on-one with this mentor, who is typically a researcher from a university, to complete an independent research project in the area of their interest. And this can range from social science, psychology, such as psychology, to astrophysics, to biology. And the projects are widely varied. Some involve the girls working in a lab for an extended period of time, while others are mostly remote data analysis. After they finish their project, they write it up in the form of a paper and they present it at the Tularia conference, which concludes their Tularia experience. During the program, they also attend various social events and academic workshops. And this program has been in collaboration with mentors from many, many universities globally, including MIT, the National Institutes of Health, NASA, the University of Toronto, and the University of Edinburgh. Another important aspect of Tularia that kind of grew as the program grew was examining gender's intersection with different types of privileges. As you may know, women are not a monolith and should not be treated as such by women in STEM programs. Thus, we incorporated this by mostly selecting for mentees to participate in the program who face some sort of challenge other than their gender that directly impacts their ability to pursue STEM opportunities. This can be something such as a racial identity, a sexuality, living in an under-resourced area or a country that generally doesn't offer internships to students at this age, or it can be some sort of odd problem or situation that doesn't fall under these categories. So moving forward, the advice I would like to leave anyone who is interested in STEM initiatives or working with girls is first to focus on developing girls as thinkers, especially if you're working in a field where girls are the minority. They may feel insecure, and it's highly important to empower them intellectually in order for them to succeed. The second is to always consider the problem at new angles. Previously, a lot of women in STEM nonprofits have started that work with all women without any sort of distinguishment between each woman's unique obstacles and conflicts. With Tularia, we try to focus on other aspects of their identity in addition to their gender, such as their race. And I would encourage other women in STEM or nonprofits for women in general to consider these aspects of identity outside simply their gender in order to be more successful in achieving their goals. Thank you.
Wow. Nora covered the importance and the impact that women in STEM could make very beautifully. So yeah, if we are looking forward, if you have any questions about anything so far, you can drop it in the chat.
So there is a question. So thinking about sort of partnerships again, Vaishnavi and Shreya, would you guys be looking to somehow partner and maybe make impact together? Is that something on the horizon? Have you thought about that before? Is that something possible at all? Can you involve Laura somehow? I know she's on the other side of the earth, but what are your thoughts about that?
I would love
Yeah,
to partner with Vaishnavi, especially with the work she's doing with government schools, especially in India. I would love to incorporate some of that in the organizations I work with, and with Laura as well on the other side of the world. That would be something that's really exciting.
yeah, I would love to partner with them as well. And as you emphasize about the importance of partnership, I think one thing that really strengthened this like partnership goal for like student activism and student organization was the pandemic period. We saw like, everything turned up virtually. And then I don't think that I would have been able to make that impact, globally through my organization if not for COVID, if not, things would have gone virtually. So though there was like negative side of things, there were also something positive happening. So we need to realize that opportunities are always there on the table. We just need to recognize them. And, again, the importance of partnership, because that really helps us understand different perspectives, different backgrounds. Partnering with Laura from the other part of the world would help me understand about why our women in Colombia are not encouraged in those fields. And I would also gain something personally. So yeah, that sounds, we will definitely discuss it after this about partnering.
Absolutely. I think it would be lovely. And I'm thinking as well, like Laura and Shreya. Shreya, for example, you're working on renewables. Laura, you're working with AI. Can that be interlinked, Laura? What do you think?
No, I don't have much experience with renewable. It's such an interesting topic that I honestly would like to explore more because it's fascinating. And I do think it is, because if one thing if I could summarize my whole speech from the presentation from AI, would be that it's the most versatile and intersectional thing in the world. And it can be used basically for absolutely everything. And so I do think definitely it may be able to join both things. Correct me if I'm wrong, but maybe through exponentiating research, for example. One thing artificial intelligence does really good is doing work much more efficient and faster than human beings do. So it is possible to process certain types of data, for example, perhaps how to process data related to energy and how that can make more efficient research in this field, perhaps. But maybe Yusra, you can correct me a little bit more. I do think that definitely there is a way of joining both things.
Absolutely. Shreya, do you want to quickly add something before we go on to Victor, our next speaker?
Yeah, I think to add to that, renewable energy, especially in India, and I'm not sure exactly what the situation is like in Colombia, but it's such a new space that I think there's so much potential to use artificial intelligence to kind of speed up the process and find data that we didn't even know about before, which can help us more efficiently make these types of energy accessible, especially, as I mentioned in my speech, in rural parts of India, which is something I'm looking at doing.
Yeah, lovely. And you guys both do work in rural parts, so I think it would be an amazing partnership. Moving on to our next speaker, who unfortunately couldn't be with us today, but he has prepared a lovely little video for us to share on his behalf. So I would be very honored to present Victor, who is the founder of We Go Digiteens, and he tries to equip every teenager in Africa with a skill in tech and promote STEM advocacy to eliminate employment and poverty, unemployment and poverty. So let's see what he's got to say.
Hi everyone, good day. I'm Victor Ayo. I'm a change maker, an innovator, and tech entrepreneur. I'm the founder of Good Teens. I'm also a global team leader, a 2022 global team leader. So I want to say a big thank you to the United Nations for this amazing opportunity. And also, I want to say a big thank you to Chinmayi. Thank you for reaching out. And to all my amazing GTLs, I love you guys so much. A big shout out to you guys. So we're going to talk about STEM advocacy, tech, and sustainable future tech can create in the socio-economic technological space. And what role you can play in making your world a better place. What can you do to make your world a better place as a young person? How can you take advantage of STEM to make your world a better place as a young person? So we're going to discuss that. We're going to be very brief and precise. But first, let's discuss about Good Teens. Good Teens is an organization that is dedicated to training teenagers in tech skills. So we offer the best technological grooming and growing platform for every African teenager. We are working to change the world perception of Africa in view of technology, as we raise teen tech leaders, innovators, and entrepreneurs that will unlock Africa's digital economy and lead the world into digital space. That's what Good Teens is about, and that's what we've been doing for years now. And so we've been able to impact the lives of thousands of young persons, including girls. What we do is that regardless of the teenager, if you're able or disabled, less privileged, underprivileged, marginalized, displaced, we are here for you. And we believe that every African teenager should have a tech skills, because like a wise man once said, my GTS can relate with these. Young people are just the leaders of tomorrow, but they're also the leaders of today. We are the future, and the future for tech for teenagers is right now. So question is, what can you do to make your world a better place using STEM? How can we tackle poverty? How can we tackle illiteracy? And how can we bridge the digital divide gap too? And the unemployment too, because unemployment is really rampant. And what I tend to do is to create employable opportunities for these young persons. So question is, what can you do to make this world a better place? So I'm going to share a few points with you. We all have roles to play. It's never been about the government. We have hundreds or thousands of NGOs who are doing amazing things, in making their world a better place, who are tackling one issue or the other. But we are going to focus on STEM right now, and STEM advocacy. What roles can you play? You could start by learning a tech skill. Yes, you could start by learning a tech skill. And then you could start by teaching and volunteering. Those are basic roles we can play, spreading digital literacy, and also contributing, bridging the digital divide gap in Africa. And one thing you all should do is look out for opportunities to make impact. There are a lot of young persons you can always reach out to in your community, around you. You could always reach out to them to make tangible impacts in their life. It doesn't necessarily have to be tech. It could be in science, it could be engineering, it could be mathematics. You could start a mathalon team or something, and teach young persons maths. I for one always had challenge growing up in mathematics, until a friend of mine came along and helped me out. But by the way, all I'm saying is that you could start by looking for an opportunity to make impact, and the opportunities are available. Create an opportunity to make impact too. Really important. It is the United Nations General Assembly Science Summit, and one of the what our session is hoping to do is to amplify the works of GTLs and also inspire you to take up roles in your community. And I started my change making journey when I was 16, and I've impacted the lives of thousands of young persons. And there's so much I've done with Good Teens, but I think one of our most amazing accomplishments was our Deaf, Dumb and Tech workshop, where we trained young persons who were disabled in hearing and talking, and we trained them in digital skills. So not the toughest one, but we nailed through. What we did was inclusivity. So I said, regardless of if the young person is displaced, if the young person is able or disabled, underprivileged, less privileged, marginalized, we ensure equal opportunity. And one of the things we also do at Big Editing is promote gender equality. And we've been able to train at least 15,000 girls in tech skills across Africa. It was really amazing. We're not going through our records and the rest of it and our impact made. So raising more female programmers, more female product designers, more female software engineers, and changing the ideology, changing what people think is the norm in Africa, that when it comes to engineering, when it comes to science, when it comes to maths, that is mostly dominated by males. But it's not. It doesn't always have to be that way. Ladies have a role to play. I mean, we girls are exceptional. Young girls are exceptional. There are so many exceptional girls right now who'll be talking to you. I mean, Chinmayi, Abna, and Rosa, Shreya, Sina, Laura, Vaishnavi, so many amazing young ladies who are doing so much in their community. And they'll be talking to you. I'm sure either some of them have spoken or they are yet to speak. But all I'm saying is that you don't always have to wait for someone to make you always have to wait for the government to do something about a particular issue. You could always do something about it. You can. And regarding STEM, I choose tech. So regarding tech, all I can say is that learn a tech skill first and share your knowledge as much as possible with as many people you can. And always be what is that field that is lacking? What is that field that people there is less impact? Research about it, learn about it, and then go for it. I mean, who would have thought that neuroscience would be a field that you choose to advocate for and talk to young people about it? But it's really remarkable, right? So do something. You always can. Change begins with you, and I believe if each one of us play a role, we can make the world a better place. So I hope I didn't bore you, and I hope you got one or two from this session. So thank you so much for taking our time to listen, and enjoy the rest of the sessions.
That's amazing. Change begins with you. That's such a great word to part with.
Hi.
And on that note of the amazing inspiring women in STEM that Victor has mentioned, we are going to circle back to Amna, who's just joined us.
Hi everyone, can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Yes, so I'm so excited to be here and be part of this amazing event that we successfully came together to be part of. I'm Amna from Pakistan, and I am also one of the GTLs for this year. So, Shima, can you move to the next one? Yeah. So, I started off with this need for building something for young women in my community. We have this thing where girls are not allowed to go out and pursue STEM careers, mainly because they're meant only for boys. So growing up, I always saw this prevalent in my community that girls were always discouraged. Just looking at my own family as well, if you want to sort of, look at something which is tech related, so maybe just changing settings on your phone, it's, oh, I'll find a boy to do that. Never ever a girl. And just this notion that in our community from a very young age, it was always sort of discouraged for me to never sort of think of building a future outside of becoming a teacher or a doctor. And that was when, during the pandemic, my mom inspired me to start learning. And the world of online learning is such an amazing place to be in, the connections that you can make. And it just made me realize that I can actually do things and there are no boundaries out there when I'm in the digital world. And I wanted to provide this same opportunity to others. And that was when I started my own social development initiative called Global Creative Hub, which then has now reiterated into BlueMed Foundation, where we're on a mission to give young girls the skills needed to create and build a future in STEM, so they have the independence and they can prove that girls can do anything. So whatever I do, I always make it my mission to change the world and make it a better place than I found it. And just even if I can change one person's life and can inspire one girl to go into STEM and build a career in that, I think I've completed my life mission. So yes, that's what we've been doing. And recently with the flood situation in Pakistan, we've in changing and pausing some of our activities to focus on how we can directly support these girls right now by doing a fundraiser where we are raising support to ensure that they have access to the basic needs they need right now, as the country, like 1/3 of the country is underwater. So if you'd like, it's on the next slide, but yes, we're doing that and have paused all of our activities to refocus and um, handle the current situation. Yeah. That's like a really short sort of summary of everything that I'm doing. I'm currently in my high school. It's blurred, but you can see that I'm in the library. And I think if it hadn't been for the support of those around me, I would have never sort of built what I have today and never sort of thought that I could do anything, especially because of the community stereotypes that we have surrounding girls going into technical fields and girls going into STEM fields. But I'm honored to be part of this revolution of young people bringing change with all of my fellow amazing GTLs who I've had the honor to, connect and meet over the past few months. And I'll hand it back over to Chinmay and Anrola, and I'm so thankful to be here.
Wonderful, Amna, and thank you so much for joining us. We're so glad you can make it. Everyone, like Amna mentioned, it's definitely a very dire crisis in Pakistan right now, and I think we'd all appreciate your support. So please definitely do check in and learn more about ways that you can take action. Wonderful. Oh, well, we meet again.
Wait, I'm going to have to introduce this amazing lady before she gets to speak because I think she deserves that. Chinmay was the one who suggested we do this together, and I think we all owe it to her to give her a big round of applause before she does her talk about her project, which is amazing. I mean, she has really quite simply simplified how to get into fields such as neuroscience, which can be a bit intimidating for some people, even though they love it. So, Chinmay, over to you.
Thank you. Oh, this session wouldn't be possible without all of the wonderful GTLs here. So kudos to you guys. It's not a solo effort by any means. All right, well, you guys excited to learn more about brains? Get hyped. We're going to be learning about not just the value of neuroscience, but also the value of studying our own brains and applying it to our everyday lives. So let's get started. Most people know about neuroscience these days, right? It's kind of a buzzword in news media. You're hearing about it everywhere in the movies, whether it's science fiction or even in real world life. There's such amazing advancements nowadays with building neurotech products for mental wellness. You've probably heard about the company Neuralink at one point or the other. Scientists are developing really amazing cutting-edge clinical therapies for Alzheimer's disease, solving brain cancers, and so on and so forth. And overall, even the way that we understand social relationships and communicate with one another, there's amazing psychologists, cognitive neuroscientists, social neuroscientists studying that out there. So it's definitely a young, emerging field with a lot of unexplored potential. And I believe that young folks are a big part of that unexplored potential, because the part that Victor mentioned before of youth as being the leaders of today, we are learning as students right now, but we are going to be the scientists, the ethicists, the technologists, philanthropists, artists, clinicians, and so much more who are really driving the conversations of the field for many years more of yet to come. But we need to do a better job of supporting the youth of today, right? And getting their interests and really fostering their interests through mentorship, providing resources that are very friendly to early learners, and so on and so forth. So that's where Simply Neuroscience comes in as a By Youth for Youth initiative that is really aiming to connect students with the fields of neuroscience and psychology earlier on. I recall that even a few short years ago when I was in high school, people would often kind of tell me that neuroscience was a great field to pursue, maybe later on in college, maybe into graduate school, but there was not really a perception that I could get started really now at this present moment. And so as I went through the years, I realized that, hey, if I could get a really early start in exploring my interest for the brain, perhaps I could really find my niche and find my community earlier on. There really is no point to delaying pursuing your interests, right? So that's kind of the whole idea of having an early learning community that is centered around you, not just as something that's a tag on to having, for let's say, a big conference of experts in the field, and then you have a side room for students, but rather let's put students at the center of the conversation of not only learning about their brains early on, but also using that knowledge to in turn empower their own communities, share that knowledge with other folks as well and other youth. So that's sort of the gist of Simply Neuroscience's vision. And we're a team of 300 wonderful youth volunteers from across the world. And over the past little over 3 years, we've worked to collaborate and impact around 31,000 students from across 119 countries. And kind of the last point I want to leave with you on the slide is that we're really trying to foster interdisciplinary connections. I think even in our previous GTL presentations, we've really highlighted how even though we think that we may be in different sectors, there's always potentials for crossovers, right? Whether it's thinking about environmental science from a psychology perspective, how do we encourage and spur people to take action to tackle the climate crisis now? How do we tell people, young people especially, to take care of their healthy sleep habits, right? Getting 4 hours of sleep a night is not very healthy for their health now or even in the future. So thinking about ways that we can bring together the sectors to have an impact in our everyday life. I like to say that neuroscience is impacting us from the time that we wake up to the time that we go to sleep, and even in that point between as well. So really thinking about ways that we can visualize learning about the brain in everyday life through different initiatives. So what are some examples of these initiatives exactly? How are we getting youth to concretely get involved and start learning? Well, one of them is through creating study resources that are jargon-free, that are not intimidating textbooks that are 600 pages long, but rather are very visually friendly, contain real-world examples of cases, and contain spaces for actually exploring live on Zoom, perhaps, or even on discussion forums and so on and so forth. We have the Presynaptic Project, which hosts wonderful challenges like the Cognitive Creativity Challenge, culminating in an open mic night that's centered on discussing the immense value and meaning of neurodiversity in our present world. And even summer camps for middle school students is a fun way to ease them into learning about their brains. There's also opportunities for students who are pursuing hands-on opportunities, like research internships, for instance. Could be a tie-in to the programs Nora mentioned before with Teleria, and helping students exactly figure out how to get started. What are the ABCs of even deciding to pursue those hands-on internships, and even looking to the future, perhaps professional graduate level fellowships as well. Then comes the whole point of mentorship. We can learn so much from Google and the internet and seek out information from the farthest sources and corners of the World Wide Web, but it definitely means a lot to learn directly from individuals who have pursued paths before us and hear about the human journey behind their resume as well. What were their challenges? What inspired them to pursue the brain, and what impact do they envision for the future? So all these different initiatives, while led by separate teams within the organization, do sort of aim to culminate in a cohesive manner where students can, instead of going through a one-size-fits-all approach that we do not really support, find a flexible manner of learning that works best for them. And so that brings us to how can you get involved, the actual take action steps. The key point that I think we've all been very, very much advocating for is that we see so much interest among youth to make a difference, but we need to be better about supporting them at every step of the way. It's not just a matter of, we have hosted this workshop, right? And then we're going to let these people go. That's not the case. We're following through on all of our actions and making sure that it's sustainable change, that we are supporting youth in their long-term journeys as well, beyond high school, beyond college, and into their long-term careers. So part of that comes from these learning communities. While we all may be from across the world, we're connected here today on Zoom, obviously, and we're also working to bridge the global and grassroots gap. And by doing that, what we do is supporting underrepresented students, marginalized students, and in underserved regions especially. Silver lining of the pandemic has been that we are all able to connect virtually, but what about folks in communities who do not necessarily have that easy access? So next steps for Simply Neuroscience, and I think for youth action and change making in STEM in general, are sort of being the bridge between global collaborations and grassroots efforts, and strengthening open access learning that isn't limited by financial worries, right? Of can I pay $100 for this textbook, but rather open access online learning that is free access to mentors, that is accessible in all means possible. So we encourage you to think more deeply about your brain, get excited in learning more about applications in mental health or economics or art, and much, much beyond that point. So I hope you walk away and with a little bit more insight about the brain's awesome range, and also join us in pursuing the brain, unlocking the future, one neuron at a time. That's all. Thank you.
Wow, thank you, Chinmayi, for that lovely, lovely talk about how we can use our neurons to make change and how to get involved with that further. So thank you so much for sharing. Back to you.
Awesome. Thank you so much, everyone. I'd love to pass it over to my colleague, Charvi, who is the founder and chief executive officer of the Amygdala, who's really working to make a difference in supporting students and mental health as they pursue their visions. So.
Hello, everyone, and thank you so much for joining us today. I am Charvi Gangwani, the co-founder and executive director of the Amygdala Forum, which is a global youth-led nonprofit organization raising awareness about mental health issues, advocating for access to mental health services in schools, and helping adolescents achieve psychological resilience through education and resources. I am incredibly inspired by my fellow global team leaders and in awe of their commitment to create a just, equitable, and peaceful future. At the same time, I'm extremely honored and humbled to share my work with mental health advocacy, especially in this digital age, and how I leverage collaborative ICT tools to provide access to mental health care to the youth. Hailing from the heart of India and Madhya Pradesh, brought up in a community where there are a lot of barriers to accessing basic mental health care, such as lack of education, lack of comprehensive mental health policies, limited affordability, limited availability of medication and health professionals, and the vast stigmatization makes diagnosis and treatment of mental health related issues and illnesses extremely difficult. My journey with the Amygdala began in 2020 when I witnessed COVID-19 further exacerbate mental health issues amongst population at large, and especially amongst teenagers, many of whom were facing mental health challenges for the first time in their lives. Considering self-isolation, fear of being infected or fear of our loved ones being infected, on top of continued studies or the lack of, combined with devices brought to our generation via technology, I realized it was extremely important for nations globally to step up to help protect students from adversity, promote socio-emotional learning and psychological well-being, and ensure access to mental health care. 2020 was also the time when many of us were delving deeper into the untapped potential of virtual communities and their promise in fostering mutual global aid and cross-cultural awareness. What started as an online forum to discuss our mental health during the pandemic, empower young people, help them develop new friendships, share personal experiences, communicate with others who understand, provide information and emotional support, and most importantly, help them feel less alone and normalize their experiences, soon took the form of a youth-driven movement to destigmatize mental health and create safe spaces for teenagers where they could talk about their struggles candidly. These virtual communities, through the online session, activities, and chat rooms, brought in a more diverse set of voices than ever to participate in the virtual working of strengthening mental health advocacy efforts. The Amygdala thus created a community-driven solution focusing on long-term impact, empowering action at the local, national, and international levels, bearing significant relevance to the UN SDG 4 quality education and UN SDG 3 good health and well-being. After hosting successful webinars and mindfulness sessions, inviting professionals and mental health care specialists from across the world to focus on critical issues of stress, anxiety, self-esteem, drug abuse, and shattering stereotypes surrounding mental health, my team and I started asking bigger questions like, what if we all had access to mental health despite our diverse social, linguistic, economic, or cultural backgrounds? And that was the point we started thinking about how we can scale our initiative to make it more relevant across countries and cultures. So we started creating and distributing background-specific curriculum and information guides for not only students, but also for parents and educators to bridge the generational gap when it comes to mental health. We were able to reach for people from all corners of the globe through social media, and we continued inviting them to our monthly town halls where we give a stage where they are heard and their thoughts are recognized. The response from the guides were extremely positive as well, and we were able to disseminate our materials from across 43 schools and overall impact more than 5,000 people globally. We also started our Global Ambassador program to shed light on the mental health related challenges faced by students in their communities and provide immediate solutions for the same, while also kickstarting the much needed discussion around mental well-being on a grassroots level. This year, we also launched our speaker series that directly connects mental health advocates and allies to students and highlights the stories of young mental health advocates to empower young people to show support and raise awareness for mental health. Through these programs, we have reached to students and educators of different schools in India and abroad and have collaborated with various other student-led organizations like the Squanchy Project, Continue the Conversation, Build a Future, Developing Indian Youth, and SAM Foundation to help spread our message further across students, teachers, and parents likewise. The Amygdala was also recognized by Niti Aayog, the apex public policy think tank of the Government of India Design for Change, and UNICEF India as one of the top 30 most inspiring ideas of change in 2020 from over 1,000 projects of change submitted by young people aged 10 to 24 from across 28 states in India. Our organization received high praise for nurturing empathy, cultivating optimism, and building the collaborative spirit amongst the young people. In 2021, we also received $800 in funding from UK-based charity Teach a Man to Fish, where we utilized it to organize a nationwide mental health summit in India. In 2022, Amygdala partnered up with Youth X Youth Learning Festival to advocate for the integration of mental health support and resources in higher education institute, especially in the Global South. Our session reached over 500 youth activists and allies who are all dedicated to the reimagination and transformation of education for collective liberation. Through this collaboration, we accelerated the process of young people influencing, designing, and transforming their learning experiences and education systems to involve mandatory and equitable access to mental health. We at the Amygdala are actively encouraging the world to take a proactive rather than a reactive approach to mental health. You can help our organization by getting involved as a student, parent, activist, ally, or educator to our various global programs and instigate not only conversations, but systemic change to support Gen Z with their mental health. Thank you.
Wonderful. Amazing job, Charvi. Now you're not here, but shout out to you. Let's take a very quick moment here to pause and do a quick Q&A. If you have any questions for Victor, for Charvi, for myself, or take a quick water break. And then we will switch over to Kevin in a moment.
Yeah, absolutely. I think the sessions link quite nicely together, as in the work that young people are doing today, the leaders that have been recognized as global teen leaders. They do work that is unique, but also intersect. And that's how, you have neuroscience with Chinmayi, and then you have mental health with Charvi. It's really quite lovely to see that. And then you have female empowerment. And all of these things link so beautifully together, and I'm so honored to be part of you guys and listen to you speak. If there are any questions, if not, we can move on to Kevin. Kevin, the stage is yours.
Amazing. Can everyone hear me? Great. So hi, everyone. My name is Kevin Zhu. I am the CEO and editor-in-chief of the Incandescent Review. And I'm really excited to be here today to be able to share what we've been able to accomplish over the last 3 years, as well as the direction we're taking moving forward. But before I kind of dive into what the Incandescent Review is and what we actually work on, I would love to be able to give a little bit of background on my experience in the STEM world. And so for the last 2 years or so, I've been working at the Snyder Lab at Stanford, focusing in cancer genomics, in particular, identifying tandem repeat, or these repetitive mutation sequences that could potentially be markers shown in sheared DNA from metastatic or primary tumor sequences, ultimately being identified in blood draws. And so essentially, long story short, early detection methods of cancer. And so this work, both in an individual capacity and at a lab capacity, has resulted in multiple publications, including one forthcoming in Nature, as well as, if you could go to the next slide, focused on my independent research recently being honored at the International Science and Engineering Fair, which is the largest high school science research competition in the world, being selected as the best computational biology project out of 6 million projects. And so kind of diametrically opposed to this world of independent research I've been focused in, if you go to the next slide, I am also a musician and creative writer. I've been playing piano since the age of 4 and currently study at the Juilliard School of Music, as well as having worked on poetry and creative nonfiction for a while now. And so these two kind of, diametrically opposed views I've been able to experience over the last few years has kind of led me to come to almost two core connections. So if we can go to the next slide, focused on one, the fact that creative arts can be used as a medium for interdisciplinary communication. That STEM is based in the idea of how can you communicate ideas in a way that finds common ground. And I think, to me, the most powerful way is through creative arts. And what I mean by that isn't just writing and music, it's anything that allows the creative mind to explore. And the second thing is mental health, that this mental health, the crisis itself, remains an enduring issue. Whether you're involved in STEM or in the arts, it doesn't really matter. It's a core concept that needs to be addressed in society. And so these are kind of the two forcing factors as to why the Incandescent was born. Back in 2020, my friends and I, at the beginning of the pandemic, noticed that there was this disconnect of a platform where we were able to actually express ourselves and connect with other individuals. And so the Incandescent serves as this platform for us to illuminate the voices of the youth, as well as create a world of interdisciplinary connections through creative arts. And so I'll dive deeper into the branches of Incandescent, but at a high level, we have the Review, a literary magazine, the Studio, a writing program, and an international gallery project. With these three, we have amassed over 100 active members with 200,000 live viewers and over $20,000 raised. And so with the Review, over the last 2 years, we've been able to have 11 literary publications, over 400 blogs, and 150 plus student creatives, so writers and musicians, featured with our magazines. Our magazines are both online and in print issues. And with the Review, we've been able to curate events, including with the film and spoken word, Artists for BLM, UNICEF, as well as contests. And so if you actually go to the next slide, I feature some of these, including our film competition winners, our podcast, as well as our blogs. And so the Review was kind of our first step into how we can create a platform for teenage creatives, with many of which are involved in the STEM field. So if you take a look at some of our issues and publications, a lot of the works there are based in STEM work. And so we realized that publication was not the only way we could try and create and generate this platform. And that's kind of where our summer studio was born. So if we go to the next slide, sorry, I should mention that issue 11 was recently published in the last 2 weeks or so. So if you go to the incandescentreview.org, I just wanted to feature our most recent issue, which has been a tremendous success for our magazine. And so, sorry, the next slide is where I introduced the Incandescent Studio, which is our avenue into education. We wanted to target a group of individuals that currently lacked support. And so we found that anywhere from the age of 11 to 14, there's this community of writers who are extremely passionate, yet they don't have the resources to actually find education. In fact, many extracurricular activities are focused on anyone past the age of 15. It's really not catered towards a younger audience. And so in the 3 years that we've been running this program, we've had over 100 mentees with that $20,000 raised. And if we could go to the next slide, we've been able to create curated events that have shown immense success within our audience. And so this past summer, we had 6 authors come in to our reading event, along with 5 youth-based magazines, you can see on the top, with curated submission pipelines for our mentees, allowing us to overall give this immersive experience for these emerging writers and artists. And so quickly to the next slide. Just wanted to shout out the creators of the future, our mentors over the last 3 years. They're now outgoing amazing things. And so what's next really for our project? We're currently actively working on the Incandescent International, which is focused on illuminating cultural voices around the world. Excuse me. The idea here is, can we utilize the online presence that we've been able to create and showcase cultures and regions around the world, for example, in China or in India? And how can we especially create this environment given the audience we've been able to curate for them. And so if we go to the next slide, we've been focused actively in Hong Kong, Sweden, and West Africa at the moment. West Africa actually working with a fellow GTL, and we're actively seeking participation. So over the next 2 months, we're creating these curated galleries online that we're dropping very soon, especially in Hong Kong. And so this is where we would love to see support. Can we find support for the international project? Along with that, our accelerator fund, we're actively trying to create this $20,000 fund towards teenage creators and founders. As through our education program, as well as our magazine, we've seen that a lot of people are simply looking for financial support, given their amazing ideas. And so that's what we want to support. So if we go to the next slide, I just kind of want to branch out from everything that I've been talking about and give an overview of what incandescent really is as we come to the conclusion of this presentation. Is that incandescent has a double meaning. On one end, it represents the visualization of a luminous glow, but at the same time represents a burning passion that we all have. And so our mission or our motto is, when a fire is kindled, it only knows how to grow. And so that is the essence of the Incandescent Review and the ultimate brand of incandescent. That's what we hope to strive and show with our audience. And yeah, I mean, that's kind of an overarching view of what incandescent is. If you are ever interested or have any questions and opportunities, feel free to reach out either at my personal, Casey Jericho, or the actual review email. But thank you again for your time and consideration, and I'll pass it on to the next person, which is Senna. So I guess I'll do the introduction for this. Senna, who is another fellow GTL, is the founder of the Global Youth Review, and is an amazing individual based in Asia, with her magazine being a tremendously impactful project. So I think we have a video for Senna, who I just need to shout out quickly.
On to the theme of youth.
Sorry, I just wanted to shout out really quickly. She filmed this in the airport. I just wanted to show like the dedication she had towards making this happen despite her crazy schedule today. I think she said she had like a 24-hour flight, but yeah, amazing job to all the other GTLs today.
Thank you, Kevin. Wonderful presentation. And here we go with Senna's.
Empowerment, I'd like to slightly branch off by showcasing its applications in creative endeavors as well as literature. I'm incredibly honored to be on this stage today alongside so many other incredible changemakers. And today I'll be presenting my initiative called the Global Youth Review, which is an international literary and arts platform aiming to amplify underprivileged voices in STEM and other fields. It was first founded in 2020 with a focus on providing youth the tools to storytell, as well as advocate for themselves and others. We also try and empower underprivileged youth through creative expression by showcasing their unique stories and amplifying them through hosting free workshops, publishing writing and art, and more. As a result, our magazines are read in over 100 countries with a combined print and online viewership of 100K. My own stakes in this initiative stemmed from the lack of civic engagement and empowered youth in my own community. In Tokyo alone, the number of youth voting in elections and engaging in civic events was under 30%, and this goes the same for overseas as well, where democracies are dying due to the number of disaffected youth within their societies. Thus, I came to the conclusion that youth must be equipped with lifelong advocacy skills as well as empowerment that can be transferred to a variety of settings and be nurtured throughout their lives. In conclusion, we empower generations of underprivileged youth in STEM and other fields, and we also teach tools of self-advocacy and activism through creative endeavors. I'd like to thank everyone for listening to my short segment on in this session.
Wonderful. A brief snippet of Senna's work, and you should definitely check out what the Global Youth Review is up to. Again, Senna's at the airport this morning. So thanks again for making this happen still, though. Now we have our last but not least presentation from the coming up, who is thankfully able to join live. So we will hop over to Deepa's presentation in a second. Any quick questions anyone wants to add in the chat for previous GTLs though?
Think we should be good to go and maybe do a little question session at the end as well, just to wrap up. But for now, you know, the stage is all yours, Dipta. Thank you very much, Chinmay, as well.
Go ahead,
there you go.
Dipta, take it away. We can
Hi.
hear you.
Okay. Hello, my name is Dipta. I'm extremely honored to be here along with my fellow GTLs and my peers. My name is equitable Dipta. I'm from Bali and I'm the founder of Liquify. Next slide, please. So let's first understand what the problem is, what the crisis is, what the global water crisis is. When I was a lot younger, I lived in my hometown of Kintamani, which is up in the north of Bali. And I now live in the middle of Bali. But when I used to live there, we had this one tap. We use it to drink our water, we use it to wash our dishes, wash our clothes, and we use it for everything. But as time went on, we lost access to it and it became dirty and we had to get another water source and it cost a lot of money. And when I realized this, I realized that it's not only me. I wasn't alone. After a lot of research, 1 out of 3 people in the world don't have access to one of the most valuable resources in the world, which is water. Which means that 2.5 billion people in the world don't have access to drink clean and drinkable water. So other problems is the water table is literally falling due to the lack of water recharge and water exploitation in many areas around the world, causing land subsidence, saltwater intrusions, and groundwater depletion. But also, not only that, but global warming is making things even worse by increasing the temperatures and causing droughts in many areas of the world. Next slide. So that's why I created Liquify in 2020. It is a self-sufficient initiative directed towards providing innovative water solutions, education, empowering the youth, and raising awareness about the global water crisis. So what we do is selling profitable products to donate solutions like recharge wells, water catchment systems, ultrafiltration systems, and even empowering the youth by providing free education and water pollution through books and workshops. On the field, we have directly impacted around 700 people in Bali with innovative water solutions, reached more than 30,000 people across the globe to raise awareness of the water crisis through social media and more. Next slide. And this is a quick overview of Liquify in a nutshell of what we've done so far. So at my school in Bali, we have a gym and I helped build an underground water catchment system at the Ark, which collects the water and harvests the water, and thus we can recycle the water. I've also created pieces of art that, as you can see on the top right, pieces of art that we auctioned off for $1,100, and we use that money to also provide solutions for people in need. I've also done a presentation to the President of the UN General Assembly. We've also helped create recharge wells at my hometown of Kintamani to provide to the locals at the village to help them get free access to clean and drinkable water. And also by Liquify is also planning to donate and sell educational books and start workshops, not only in international schools in Bali, but also with local schools to empower the youth and educate them about the water problem and more. And not only that, but we've also experimented with the ultrafiltration system, which is a small little filter that costs about $5 and can last up to 5 years and weighs basically nothing and use no electricity. It only uses gravity power and it is adaptable to anything, but like taps, like I said before, hydration packs, buckets, and so on and so forth. And that will be my quick little session. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Dipta, for joining us. It's lovely to see how you're doing very much grassroots work with increasing access to water, and that's lovely. And I think it really tells us a lot about the spectrum of things that young people are doing, from grassroots to more meta-based kind of things and leadership. And I just want to open up the floor to a question from Vaishnavi. Take it away.
Yeah, totally agree with all those opinions. Also, as I think Chinmay mentioned before, that youth today want to make the change, but we are supposed to believe that we can only make a change. We can only, draw a project. We can only innovate a better sustainable option for drinking water when we turn 18 or when we go to college or when we graduate from college. And so we really need to create that environment for youth, to tell them that if they want to do something now, it's totally open doors for them. So I think these organizations like ours really help hosting and conducting these events that is open to young people, to help them recognize their passions as well.
Absolutely. I think one message from actually the Global Teen Leaders Summit that really stands out is that we carry our lived experiences as our expertise, and that we may not have a million degrees on our resumes. The fact that we are still basing these out of personal experiences, I think, is, like, for instance, Deepta seeing this issue in Native Village is just such a testament to that you can take change even if you don't necessarily have 10 years of schooling, right? You don't have to finish college or graduate school to get started.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for sharing. And off to Laura as well, who has a question for Kevin. Go away. Go away. Feel free to ask.
Thank you, Anissa. Yeah, I think Kevin's work is extremely interesting, the way he intersects, these all different areas. And I'm curious about how your international expansion is going on and how it's being planned, especially like the way you presented it. It seems like it's already happening. So I'm really curious about that.
Yeah, so our international project is kind of what we're spearheading right now. So we've been in the works for around a month now, working with these communities around the world, and we're still actively seeking partnerships. So if you or anyone who's interested in a region around the world and is interested in creative arts as well as STEM, I would love to see something work. But right now we're at the preliminary stages. So we have a website built, we have internally teams in these regions where we're actively communicating with, and just now starting on the process of curating submissions, trying to create those first galleries. And I think we're kind of aligning right now towards mid-October or early October for our first drop, and then probably going to be actively publishing up until maybe December, January or so. And so that's kind of the timeline of what we're working on. Super exciting because it's our first avenue into like a fully online immersive experience. And finally, we're able to showcase these regions around the world that may not necessarily have the amount of exposure as the United States, for example.
Absolutely fascinating. Thank you so much for sharing. Does anyone else have any questions at all?
Yeah, I had a question for Chinmay. Chinmay, as you mentioned about, you also already touched the topic of how students sometimes speak out when it comes to like neuroscience, and they expect something that is supposed to be learned later on in their college life. So how do you sort of tackle those problems, and how to sort of like make students learn the stigma around that neuroscience is meant for like, when you are in a stable state of like academia? So yeah.
Absolutely. That entire movement of let's get outside of the ivory tower and let's think about learning and education outside of academia is such a big topic. So I love that you asked that. I think the most important aspect that personally resonates with me too is that exploring earlier on means that by the time that we start pursuing higher education formally, it usually means that we have some sort of comfortable base, right? We are not flying in blind. We are not worried about taking 20, 30 different classes to find, what might be my perfect niche. We go in with some sort of familiarity and more of a comfort zone. So it never really hurts to get early exposure, right? And honestly, when you think about the fact that we learn about fields that are really impactful, of course, such as physics, chemistry, and so much more, these kind of very hard sciences, yet we don't learn about neuroscience, which probably most of us will have a relation to in some way, shape, or form, even 20, 30 years into the future. That's a little concerning. So it starts with connecting with teachers, but even outside of the classroom, there's a lot that we can do to support our fellow peers as well, outside of traditional K-12 school systems or university. So it is a lot about these kind of student-led extracurricular organizing efforts, but at the end of the day, TLDR, I don't think it hurts to get that early exposure and to know kind of what resonates with you most.
Absolutely lovely. Thank you so much for asking that question, Vaishnavi, and for your amazing response, Chinmayi, and the work that you're doing. I just wanted to give a shout out to Priyanka, who shared a lovely comment in the chat. We thank you so much for tuning in with us and listening to us. And we're glad that we were able to share all of our experiences with all of you. To just end, I think, the whole talk, I'll pass it on to Kevin. And yeah. Go for it, Kevin.
Awesome. Yeah, I think Shemai, we have a small slide at the end to share. But I just wanted to give a huge thank you to everyone who came today, and obviously a huge thank you to all of the global team leaders that ended up been an opportunity for us.
Thank you so much.
Thank you everyone for tuning in. We hope to see you in the future soon. Hopefully we'll cross paths once more. Take care, stay well.